Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I want to tell you a story today that proves one small act of kindness can come back to you in ways you could never imagine. It's about a single dad, a rainy night, an old man struggling to walk, and a twist the very next day that changed everything. Mark Dawson had never imagined his life would turn out the way it did. 5 years ago, he was a husband, a homeowner, and a man with steady plans. Then tragedy struck, and suddenly he was just dad. No backup, no partner, just him and his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. She was the reason he woke up every morning, the reason he pushed through exhaustion, and the reason he never allowed himself to quit. Mark worked as a maintenance supervisor at a mid-sized corporate office building downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. He handled everything: leaky pipes, broken elevators, faulty wiring, and late-night emergency repairs. He often joked that the building would probably fall apart without him. But lately, things had been tense. A new regional director had taken over the building's operations. Her name was Victoria Hale. She was sharp, ambitious, and known for cutting costs. Within weeks, she had already let go of 2 employees. Rumor had it she wanted to outsource maintenance to a cheaper third-party company. Mark tried not to worry. But when you're a single dad with one income, try is the only option you have. One Thursday evening, the sky turned dark earlier than usual. Clouds rolled in thick and heavy, and by the time Mark clocked out, rain was pouring down like the heavens had split open. He pulled his jacket tighter and rushed toward the bus stop, umbrella forgotten in his locker. Halfway down the block, he noticed someone ahead of him, an old man, thin and slightly hunched, gripping a cane with one hand and a small grocery bag with the other. The rain soaked him completely. Cars splashed puddles onto the sidewalk as they passed. The old man tried to step off the curb but hesitated, his foot trembling. Most people hurried by without slowing down. Mark stopped. He didn't think about it. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. He just walked up and said, "Sir, let me help you." The old man looked up, rain dripping from his white eyebrows. His voice was soft but steady. "Thank you, son. I suppose I underestimated the weather." Mark took the grocery bag and offered his arm. The old man's grip was surprisingly firm. Together, they crossed the street slowly. The rain intensified, thunder rumbling in the distance. "Where are you headed?" Mark asked. "Just a few blocks down. I can manage." "You don't have to," Mark said gently. "I'm not in a rush." The truth was, he was in a rush. Lily was waiting at home with a neighbor. But some things matter more. They walked carefully, step by step. The old man's breathing grew heavier as they approached a modest brick apartment building. "I live here," the man said. Mark escorted him up the front steps and under the small awning. He handed back the groceries. "Thank you," the old man said again. His eyes were piercing, intelligent. "What's your name?" "Mark." "Well, Mark, you've done more than you realize tonight." Mark smiled politely. "Just helping out." The old man studied him for a moment. "The world needs more men like you." Mark shrugged. "I'm just trying to set a good example for my daughter." The old man's expression softened. "Then she's fortunate." Mark waved goodbye and jogged toward the bus stop, completely unaware that someone had been watching from the second-floor window of that very building. The next morning, Mark arrived at work earlier than usual. The air inside the office building felt different. Employees whispered near the elevators. There was tension, thick and uncomfortable. By 10 a.m., an email circulated: mandatory meeting in the main conference hall at noon. Mark's stomach dropped. He spent the next 2 hours fixing a broken restroom sink. But his mind was racing. If they outsourced maintenance, he'd be gone. No warning, no cushion, just gone. At noon, the entire staff gathered. Victoria Hale stood at the front, impeccably dressed, her expression unreadable. "As many of you know," she began, "we've been reviewing operational costs." There it was. Mark braced himself. "However," she continued, "we have also been evaluating the value of in-house personnel." She paused, scanning the room. "Yesterday evening, a member of our building's executive board conducted an anonymous inspection of the surrounding properties." Mark frowned slightly. Executive board. Anonymous inspection. Victoria clicked a remote, and a photo appeared on the projector screen. It was him. Him, in the rain, helping the old man across the street. A murmur swept through the room. Mark's face went pale. "The gentleman in this photo," Victoria said, "is Mr. Harold Whitmore. He is the majority stakeholder of this building." The room fell silent. Mark's heart pounded. Double quotes. "Mr. Whitmore informed us this morning that he was deeply impressed by the character of one of our employees." Victoria turned toward Mark. Double quotes. "Mr. Dawson, would you please stand?" Mark felt every pair of eyes on him as he slowly rose. "Mr. Whitmore specifically requested that our maintenance department remain in-house." Victoria continued. "He believes loyalty and integrity cannot be outsourced." A ripple of quiet applause began. Mark was stunned, but Victoria wasn't finished. "Furthermore," she said, her voice shifting slightly, "Mr. Whitmore has authorized funding for expanded facility upgrades. This means we will need a facilities operations manager." Mark blinked, "and he has recommended Mr. Dawson for the role." Gasps filled the room. Mark's mind went blank. Facilities, operations manager. That was a significant promotion. Salary increase. Benefits, stability. Mark started, but words failed him. Victoria allowed a faint smile. It seems kindness pays dividends, Mr. Dawson. After the meeting, co-workers crowded around him, patting his back, congratulating him. Mark felt like he was in a dream. Later that afternoon, he received a call from a private number. Mark, came the familiar voice. Mr. Whitmore, I hope you don't mind that my assistant snapped that photograph. Mark laughed nervously. I had no idea who you were, sir. That's precisely the point. The old man replied warmly. You helped me without expecting anything. There was a pause. I built my career on numbers. Mr. Whitmore continued. But I've built my company on people. I needed to know whether the people in that building still understood that. Mark swallowed. I was just doing what anyone should do. Unfortunately, Mr. Whitmore said softly, not everyone does. The call ended, but the impact didn't. That evening, Mark picked up Lily and told her the news over macaroni and cheese at their tiny kitchen table. Does this mean we can fix the heater in my room? Lily asked hopefully. Mark laughed, his eyes misty. Yes, sweetheart. It means we can fix the heater. She threw her arms around him. You're the best dad ever. But the story doesn't end there. 3 weeks later, Mark settled into his new role. He was busier than ever, managing budgets, coordinating contractors, and planning renovations. The responsibility was heavy, but so was the relief of knowing his job was secure. One afternoon, Victoria asked to speak with him privately. He entered her office. Cautiously, she closed the door. I owe you an apology, she said. Mark was caught off guard. I came here focused solely on numbers, efficiency, cost-cutting. Was prepared to eliminate your department. He nodded slowly. But Mr. Whitmore reminded me that leadership isn't just about profit margins. She folded her hands. Your actions didn't just save your job. They shifted our entire strategy. Mark felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. Thank you, she said sincerely. Over the next few months, the building transformed. Employee morale improved. Investments were made, not just in infrastructure, but in people. Training programs were introduced. Appreciation events were organized, and it all traced back to one rainy night. But perhaps the most beautiful part came unexpectedly. One Saturday morning, there was a knock at Mark's apartment door. He opened it to find Mr. Whitmore standing there, dressed sharply, holding a small gift bag. May I come in? He asked. Lily peeked from behind the couch. Mr. Whitmore handed her the bag. Inside was a children's science kit. For the future engineer, he said with a wink. Over tea, at the small kitchen table, Mr. Whitmore revealed something personal. I lost my son years ago, he said quietly. He was about your age. He nodded toward Mark. When I was too busy building my empire to build memories. Mark listened intently. When you helped me that night, Mr. Whitmore continued, I saw the kind of man I wish my son had become. Emotion tightened Mark's throat. You didn't just help an old man in the rain. You reminded me that goodness still exists. From that day on, Mr. Whitmore became something like a grandfather figure to Lily. He attended her school play. He helped her with math homework. He even funded a scholarship program at her elementary school in her mother's name. After hearing their story, Mark never asked for any of it. He simply kept doing his job. He kept showing up. He kept being the father Lily deserved. 1 year later, standing in the newly renovated lobby of the building, Mark reflected on how fragile everything once felt. A single layoff could have shattered their lives, but instead, a single act of kindness reshaped it. Life doesn't always return favors immediately. Sometimes it doesn't return them at all. But kindness plants seeds in places we cannot see. That rainy night, Mark didn't know he was being observed. He didn't know he was helping the most powerful man connected to his workplace. He didn't know the next day would change his career. He only knew an old man was struggling, and he chose to help. If there's one thing this story teaches, it's that character reveals itself when no one is watching. Except sometimes, someone is. Mark still walks home some evenings, even when the weather threatens rain. Not because he expects another miracle, but because that's who he is. And somewhere in the city, someone else might need a steady arm to lean on. You never know who you're lifting when you reach out your hand. And sometimes, when you lift someone else, you lift yourself too.